When have you felt most scared? That was the question my 11-year-old son asked me over breakfast during February half-term. As I poured boiling water into my coffee, 1,000 memories flooded my brain. The three that rose to the top were moments where I could see the memory and feel the fear overtake me at the same time. Age 22, when I entered the hospital on my very first shift as a junior doctor, with no idea of what task or who would face me when I clipped the bleep onto my waistband. 10 years later, on a bright October Monday morning, when my son was placed into my husband's arms and we became parents. Or the moment, just a few months later, where I took a call from my neurologist, telling me they'd seen abnormal findings on the MRI scan of my brain. When I reflect on these memories, undoubtedly some of the scariest of my life, the one thing they all have in common is that they are moments that signaled huge change. Going from medical student to real doctor, moving from woman to mother, and realizing my vulnerability in the moment I went from person to patient. The reality is that change is coming for us, whether we want it or not. In a perfect world, we want to be in control of what that change looks like. With the privilege that comes from living here, we want to decide when we move through life stages, when we go to university, what we study, where we work, the jobs we do, and who we choose to spend the rest of our lives with. Spoiler alert, having just turned 45, from what I've seen, our lives represent a series of moments and decisions that we have made. But it's the changes we don't choose that really change us. I chose to study medicine and apply for jobs as a junior doctor. But the life-changing moments came from my first week of work, when I had to certify my first dead body, then go and deal with an elderly lady who wanted to leave the ward to go home at 2 o'clock in the morning. I chose to have a child and become a mother, but, as every parent will tell you, there is nothing that can prepare you for the second you realize that this person is now your responsibility. When they roll off the bed for the first time and cry so loud you think the neighbours might call the police and report your bad parenting, that wasn't something I'd signed up for. Whilst those moments were scary, admittedly, they were expectedly unexpected. But becoming a patient, at the same time as I was learning to mother, was not a box I ticked in the small print. I was 34 when I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis, a degenerative neurological condition where our brain and nervous system are at war with our immune system. There's no cure, and as I faced the awkward-looking consultant with tears rolling down my face, I realized this was going to be a change that had no resolution. By now, I was an experienced doctor, happily married in my early 30s. I'd kept my son alive for the first year of his life, so technically that made me a successful mother. But now I was going to be a patient for the rest of my life. This was not in my life plan. I'd worked so hard to become a doctor, to be able to give diagnoses, not get them. That moment was 10 years ago. And in those 10 years, I've learned more about health and resilience than I did in the previous 10 as a doctor. And what was really weird was the organ that was giving me all the problems, my brain, was also going to be the organ that helped me understand how the changes we don't choose are the ones we learn the most from in the end. When I was at university in the late 90s, I was taught that your brain cells are fixed, What you have. And when they pack up and retire, you just have to manage with less. Yet, I'd had experiences with my patients over the years when I'd seen the opposite of this happen. I'd seen people recover speech and movement after huge strokes, rediscover a love for music whilst living with the many challenges of Alzheimer's disease. I'd even had a patient who went back to university to study for her second degree at 80. But when I was facing into the diagnosis I'd been given, I couldn't see for the life of me how any of that could be possible. Initially, after hearing my own bad news, in desperation to hold on to what I knew, I did 3 things I'd always done in the face of challenge, probably since I'd been at school. I put a brave face on and hoped that would make everything okay. I held on to all my worries and fears without wanting to burden anyone else. And I threw myself into learning more about brain health to understand what was really going on up top. Thankfully, I soon realised that neuroscience had changed since being in the lecture theatres in 1998, and now we know our brains are the most elastic and plastic organs in our body, capable of change at every stage. But what was confusing was that although our brains have this capability, they don't actually want us to use it. Our brains are built to help us conserve energy and survive, not navigate through life's challenges and thrive. So where does that leave us in these hard moments? Scared? Stuck? Just surviving? That's certainly where I stayed for some time. But eventually, the jigsaw pieces of my new puzzle started coming together. Just because my brain was telling me I was stuck didn't mean I really was. Our brains are capable of change at every stage of our lives. Even in the hardest moments, we can help ourselves change how we think, feel, and act by the choices we make. I'll be honest, as a GP, having run my working life in 10-minute slots, the expanse of this idea felt a bit overwhelming at first, even a bit woo-woo. But as I began to care for my brain and myself better, something began to shift. Our brains don't switch off at night when we sleep. We can't pop them up on a couch and rest them like we might a sore leg. So I started with the basics: movement, sleep, and rest. Having been a proud non-exerciser since using the excuse of a broken wrist to get me out of lacrosse at St. George's for 2 years, I realised that gig was finally up. I wasn't in school games anymore, feeling awkward and unsporty. This was the rest of my life at stake. I didn't have to try to look a certain way or be the fastest. I just had to move more. And so I did. When we move, we increase blood flow to our brains. This brings oxygen and nutrients to hungry brain cells and at the same time helps decrease stress hormones such as cortisol. I became a champion napper. 20 minutes in the afternoon became like an energy circuit breaker that recharged me for whatever the second half of my day might bring. When we actively rest like this, our brains get the chance to reboot. Even just minutes can help with feelings of anxiety and low energy. And then I started to write, expressing myself on paper in a way I hadn't since writing diaries as a teenager, offloaded thoughts I'd not even allowed myself to think. Expressing ourselves, be it with trusted friends, to professionals, or creatively in song, art, or stories, allows us to process experiences and the confusing emotions they can bring. As my son and I finished our toast over breakfast, I decided to tell him that the time I had felt most scared was when I'd witnessed a taxi driver lose control of his car and mount the curb on a pedestrian street. I felt being too honest with him about the big moments of adult fear I felt about so many things might just be a little too much. He listened, open-mouthed, and wanted to know if anyone had been hurt. They had, I told him, but reassured him they'd been given immediate care and had appeared thankfully okay. That sounds pretty bad, Mum, but really I meant, when were you most scared watching a movie? Like, when was your biggest jump scare? Much to his annoyance, I had no real answer to that. The change we don't choose isn't a jump scare. It isn't a moment that feels terrifying, then is just over in seconds, and we realize it's all okay again. The change we don't choose is frightening. It can be earth-shattering and fully discombobulating. The only certainty is it will happen to all of us in our lives, probably more than once. For some of you, it may already have happened. When it does, here are 4 things I want you to remember. Feeling scared is a sign that change is coming. And it's okay to lean into that feeling without clearly knowing why you are frightened. It can take time to understand why this new experience or opportunity is making you scared. Very few moments are exclusively good or bad moments of change. Even lottery winners often describe that winning millions has led to the hardest moments of their life. Conversely, tales of great tragedy can result in the biggest moments of personal growth, especially when you think you can't see a way through. That change can take you to a different place than you originally imagined or feared. When it comes to your health, that fear of your own vulnerability might stay with you forever once you've felt it. But you have to learn to acknowledge it, ask it to quieten down, and get on with the rest of your life. Feeling scared is a warning signal from your brain that you're about to experience something new or different to what is normal for you. The really good news is you have all you need in your noggin to help you navigate that path. But in order to do that and steer yourself along the unknown road, you have to take time to care for yourself and the incredible organ that is your brain. Daily habits matter. Sleep, rest, movement, self-expression, and who you surround yourselves with will all impact your thoughts, mood, and ability to change. Does this mean everything happens for a reason? That we need to smile and be positive? Well, it's not as simple as that. Research by psychologists has shown that a key stage of coming to terms with difficult experiences is acceptance. When we keep smiling and pretending everything's okay, we're doing a disservice to ourselves. Often we're doing that to placate other people around us, who maybe are finding it even harder than we are to see that we're struggling. To live a healthier, happier life, what matters most is how you face challenges. And in order to do that, you have to come to terms with the loss or shock of whatever has happened. That can take time, years, sometimes even a whole lifetime. But we learn to live alongside the pain and upset of what might have been. With time, the what-if thoughts will get quieter as you move into your unchosen chapter. Steve Jobs' commencement speech to the Stanford class of 2005 explains this better than I ever could. When we look at what has happened to us over a lifetime, we can only join the dots backwards, not forwards. What about being positive? That's good for us, right? Absolutely. Babies smile reflexively because they learn that from adults around them. Then we smile more, and this becomes a virtuous circle of positive emotion. Our brains are wired to mirror the emotions of those around us. Smiling releases dopamine, endorphins, and all sorts of feel-good hormones. Smile when your heart is breaking, as the song goes. But is that right? To accept how we feel, we must acknowledge all the emotions this brings. With disappointment can come sadness, anger, frustration, and fear. But we can also feel happy. You might not have got the university place or the job that you wanted, but your friend did. We can smile and feel happy for them and sad for ourselves at the same time. Our brains really are amazing. Because of our brains' hardwiring, rejoicing in their happiness will make you feel better. But it doesn't take away from your sadness. Two things can be true. If you pretend you aren't sad at all and only happy for your friend, over time, that will cause a low-level, grumbling sadness that might seep into other things. Irritation at your loved ones, an unprovoked snappiness to a stranger, even your physical health. Honour how you feel. Don't push it away or drown it out with online shopping or TikTok. Respect it. It's telling you something important. You desperately wanted that job. You can't believe you failed. It's a change you didn't choose. And we know we get through these just fine when we give ourselves the space to do so. We've got this. We can navigate whatever plot twists come our way when we remember our brains will keep us safe. They will remind us to eat, drink, and sleep, and the more we look after them with healthy habits, the better they will look after us. We might feel like we're just treading water, desperately seeking a life raft. But in reality, that isn't what is happening. The changes we are navigating through are preparing us for what is coming next. And that might just be the most exciting chapter of all. Thank you.